Well, hey, Redeem Her Time. You guys are in for a real treat. We are going to have a really fun conversation that is also so practical to us as women in business who have to juggle a whole lot of things. I've got Kristine Delano with us today. She has got quite the story, and literally she's just written a story that ties all of this together. We're going to be talking today about having it all. How do we lead at work or in our business and at home without losing ourselves in the middle? And what I love is that Kristine's going to help us with some strategies for setting boundaries and seeking support and letting go of guilt. Hello, between work and life and things like that. So Kristine, it's been really fun to get to know you. I'm excited to welcome you to the Redeem Her Time podcast. So before we talk about the work you do, I just want to tell us about you. What are you juggling in this season of life right now outside of your work?
Well, I just arrived home from Nashville. I'm in Maine right now. I'm on the road with launching a book, and I am serving in lots of different ways. My kids are off in college and one beyond, so I'm an empty nest with my husband right now. And it's a different kind of life of the kind of juggle where before it was easy to say no to things, and now I'm finding some guilt in saying no
Ooh.
because, hey, I'm retired and I write books. Like, why can't I fit it in? So it's a different season in life, and I'm very blessed to be here, but also discovering a lot of things about myself.
Isn't that that's the beautiful part of the journey, right? Like we just did an episode about our CEO growth, right? And it's spiritual growth, it's personal growth, it's growth in whatever the work that God has called us to do. And we're not the same person when we're really leaning into the process. And I love that you pulled out, just because the kids leave the house doesn't mean you're less busy, and doesn't mean you have less distractions or less things that are requests coming at you. Like you said, sometimes it can be more, and then we feel just a different level maybe of responsibility to those things in a new season. So yeah, so interesting. We're never done, right? So tell us about the work
Never.
you do now. You've mentioned being retired. So
Yes.
I would love to kind of maybe take us a little bit of on the journey of what are you doing right now? And then maybe kind of take us back a little bit as to how God brought you to this place to be serving women through writing, rather than what you were doing before.
So I'm a fiction writer. I write thrillers for Tyndale House. So they are motion forward, faith-filled journeys of women in high-powered positions on Wall Street, looking to navigate the crazy ins and outs of finding success. So I am so excited to have released my debut novel just over 2 months ago at this point. And
So just in case somebody doesn't make it to the end, what's the title?
it's called The Lies We Trade. Yes.
Okay. All right. The
And
lives we try. We will link it in the show notes, but I just want to make sure that it got said out loud in case, because we know how it goes in
yes,
podcasts, right?
right. And The Lies We Trade really speaks to the idea of what are the lies we tell ourselves? What are we trading with ourselves? What are we trading with others? And then obviously sort of the financial fraud that is at the core of the book. I spent just about 23 years on Wall Street before I retired early. I had lots of ideas. My guiding sort of principle in life was scripture. So it's Ephesians 5:17, and it starts with, "Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is." And I sort of ran my life with this. So
Can
when
I
I'm
pause you just a
retiring,
second? I just have
sure.
to say this, okay? Because you don't know
Okay.
this. My audience already knows what I'm going to say. So those of you who are around here, what do you think I'm going to say? Redeem Her Time is literally born out of the two verses right before that.
Oh,
That is where Redeem Her Time came from. It literally was born in the pew. So here's the story. I walked into church one day, right? You ask your friend, "Hey, how's your week been?" And she says, "Oh, busy," with a smile, right? And I remember going and sitting down in the pew and going, "Is that really what the Lord has for us? Like, he just wants us to be busy all the time, and feel busy all the time." And we were in Ephesians, and it was like as clear as day. I'd been praying and fasting that week about some things with my business. And like literally I was like, redeeming the time, redeem her time, wrote it in the back of my bulletin. But I love the fact that you're looking at verse 17, because it ties into how we're approaching our time.
right.
Like people are always like, "I want to know God's will." Well, guess what? It has everything to do with how you spend your time. So wise or
Absolutely.
unwise. So anyway, sorry, I had to interrupt your story because I was like,
No.
no way.
Well, I love everything about the verse because it starts with therefore,
Yeah.
because you can't then take it in isolation.
What's the
And,
therefore,
and I have
therefore?
exactly. And so I have such trouble sometimes when people like pull things and they like make it fit,
Yes.
where I feel like
Oh,
what it does, it's an invitational verse that
oh, I love
allows
that.
you to sort of dig deeper. But also, I had sort of created a cadence in my life where it was understanding God's will, right? So
Mm,
the understand
mm,
part was on me, right? Like
mm.
I needed to understand God's will. So when I was retiring, I'm just pursuing understanding and I'm getting none. All I'm getting is this visual of me in this like field and I can't see ahead of me and I'm just walking and I'm like I feel like I'm in obedience, like maybe God is coming in ahead of me and I'm just supposed to be walking, but there is no understanding. And I'm infused with story and I can't get out of my head and I just want to write a novel and I'm like I've
Welcome
never
to
wanted to
the
write a novel
squirrel's
in my
nest,
life.
right?
Right, right. I've never wanted to do this before and I'm really not getting any understanding except for obedience. So I don't
Ah,
really know what God's will is. I just know that I need to sit down every day and start writing.
mm.
And I ended up, starting a career as a fiction writer, writing the kind of books that I could never find. I couldn't find the kind of women that I wanted to read about, that I wanted to learn about, that I wanted to invest 10 hours of my time listening to or however many hours reading. And I wanted to provide that. I didn't want to have another book that sort of took me out of my life. I really wanted
Oh,
to sort of see myself in the struggle and learn about myself because of both the mistakes and the full arc learning that the character went through. And so that's what I set out to write. And it took a while to get good at that, but
so
I'm
were you a writer
on the
prior
journey.
to starting this project, or did
I
this
was a
literally?
No, I was a reader.
Okay,
And I,
yeah,
I do a
well,
lot of writing for my job.
sure,
On Wall
sure,
Street,
sure.
it's analysts, it's breaking down, and then it's a ton of storytelling. I hadn't realized how
Ah,
much I learned about storytelling. In order to be good at selling your proposal and getting your budget and being promoted, you've got to be a really good storyteller. You got to
ah,
get people to move from where they are to where you need them to be.
mm,
And I did that by story.
yeah.
And so there was a lot that I knew about it. I just didn't know I knew it.
See, I
So
love that. It's like the Lord was preparing you and giving you these experiences, giving you, of course, for
yes.
settings and characters and things like that, and problems, giving you these, these skill sets, the writing and storytelling that then now He's weaving into this. So just so, so beautiful. Yeah, and I was telling you earlier before we hit record, like I am not one to just pick up a fiction book just for the sake of a
Mm,
fiction book. And so I love, and I told you about, I'm in a series right now where I see myself in the characters and I feel like I'm learning
yeah.
about myself as I'm also enjoying like learning how they're journeying through things. And so I can't wait to dive into yours a little bit more and things like that. So we talked
Thank you.
about the juggle struggle, right? Like
Mm,
this is life, whether you have kids at home, whether they're out, whether you're working full time, whether you're home and retired, whether your business is, a part-time side gig or it's, this thriving, 6, 7 figure thing that it is. I think most Christian women, and especially those of us then who take on some kind of an extra something, whether it's ministry or business or, writing or something like that. Now we just have all these balls we're juggling and things like that. So let's dive into this, right? Because this is the constant where I tell people are like, I feel like I'm dropping all the balls, or like, I just feel like I'm always juggling, trying to not drop the balls. Like, why is this such a need and a problem for us, especially as Christian women? And my audience is particularly business owners, right? So even though we may not be in Wall Street, like we are working our tails off over here trying to make these businesses, productive and profitable and things like that.
right.
So, yeah.
And I think it's lovely in this day and age that there is a lot of strategies and tactics that go on to help people understand work-life balance. But what I have noticed in sort of mentoring and working with a lot of men and women in my previous career was that they would implement some of these, right? Like they would actually apply themselves. They'd either get a coach or they'd buy a book or they'd go to a seminar. They'd do a lot of things. But then they'd wake up every morning and still question, Are they in the right job? Are they spending the
Mm.
right amount of time?
Mm.
Are they finding success? And it would degrade whatever really good,
Mm.
system that they had put into place. And so one of the, I don't know, levels of advice that I give when asked is that you should be going through a quarterly review process.
Yes, yes.
And you sit down with yourself, you sit down with God, you sit down with what I call a personal board of directors. So it are people that you have not only in your head assigned as people that are great in wisdom and discernment within your situation, but that you have actively recruited for this role. And you review. Where are you? How is it going? What are some of the things you need to pivot? What are some of the things you need to stop? What are some of the things you need to add?
Mm.
How do you see busyness? All the questions that whatever framework you've applied, you actually go through and do your own quarterly review. You come out of that, you've got ideas. These are the things that I need to change. These are the things that I need to continue. This is my mindset that I'm going to go into my next quarter. And then you leave it, and you're
Mm.
not allowed to pick it back up every morning when you're waking up and saying like, am I in the right place? Should we just move to Vermont and buy the farm? You need to stop. You need to have that mental acuity
Mm.
to put those things aside and not allow it to wreck all the good work and all the good success that you haven't found in life. And you have that accountability with not just yourself, but with God, with your spouse, with your friends, that you keep that mental fortitude on that review and you move forward. Because the biggest thing that I see destroying women right now in their careers is not necessarily that they're on the wrong path.
Mm.
They're just overly questioning it every day and eroding their own success and their own contentedness.
Wow. Okay, so many things are coming in my mind. The first one, I believe that leaders make decisions quickly with wisdom, but then they change them slowly. And I love how you said, sit down and do this board meeting, right? And make some really strategic, intentional decisions, looking at the data, looking at the facts, looking at how you're feeling, looking at, right, all the factors, and then commit to that for the next 12 weeks, because otherwise you are going to feel like every other day it's, a different flavor, and things are always shifting, right?
Right.
Whereas people who are striving, they're making decisions really slow because they're so like not wanting to commit to something, right? And what if this isn't the right one? But then they change them very quickly before they maybe even give something a chance to like even settle into a place where it actually could move them somewhere. So I love that. And I teach a 12-week growth mapping strategy where we do, this is what I teach. So I love that you do this. And I tell my girls, my planner is undated. So you don't have to wait for a quarter to start to do this, but I like the
Mm.
cadence of every 12 weeks because
Hmm.
it's a close enough, timeline that you feel a healthy sense of urgency to not just sit on the couch and wait and push things off. But it's not so tight of a timeline that you feel like you're like running, and you're so out of breath.
Right.
And when you're intentional, you can pace that out. And then week 13 is always rest, reflect, reset.
Mm.
So that's what I'm hearing, kind of that
Yes.
you've been doing and things like that. So I heard you mention this in there, but I wanted to kind of dive into like what are the gurus telling us to do, and what I think I heard you say. Maybe you can just elaborate. Is like they're like, here's the shiny thing, here's the strategy, here's the tactic, here's the hack or whatever, and we think like this is the instant everything. And then it's not, and then we just chase the next shiny object, right? Like, why does that advice not? Because you didn't say one strategy is better than another. I didn't hear you say that, but I think the implementation piece of it was kind of what you were getting at. Is that right?
Right. Well, and to a certain extent, I don't believe that I can decide for people out there what is the right
Right.
strategy.
Yeah.
I believe that people are coming from very different personalities, very different ways of approaching the world. I always want to be biblically based. So I believe that there's this idea of applying ourselves, growing in wisdom, finding rest. Like I
Mm.
think there's certain cadences that just work for humans.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a lot of really good things out there that help people with sort of the busyness and the work-life balance. And I love sitting down with folks and say, hey, I found this framework. How do
Mm.
you feel like this fits with me? I love to go over that. I believe that that takes more coaching. That takes more one-on-one.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's a one size fits all for everyone to figure out
Right.
whether I'm spending enough time at the T-ball or in the conference room. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it looks very different, but I believe that your ability to sort of find a contentedness, find a
Mm.
joy with the
Mm.
work that you do and the life that you lead and the loves that you have around you is really more of a mental game than it is
Yeah.
a an outlook schedule that you might be holding,
Yeah.
right?
When I help women with their time, like I got on a coaching call yesterday and I was like, okay, tell me what your goals are. What would be an ultimate win coming out of here? And of course, it was very like calendar related time stuff or whatever. And I
Mm.
was like, okay, so we're going to start where you don't want to start, your heart. She looked at me like, what? But it was so interesting. We dove into her mindset around this issue and what she was thinking and what she was feeling. And then based on that, what was she doing or not doing? And she realized, like, oh, no wonder I'm getting the results I'm getting because, and then we, of course, find truth and then we redirect it with my steer belief map. But yeah, I mean, just this whole idea of, like it's not about it being a one size fits all, but taking the time to evaluate what is my season of life? What are the numbers? And this is where, like, especially in business, it's one thing I think if you're in a corporation and you are responsible to somebody else to know your numbers, right? Because they're going to ask
Mm.
you. But for a lot of my business owners, they're solopreneurs right now. And so, like, it's really easy to not even stop to look at the numbers because they're just trying to check boxes. But then you can't
Right.
make strategic decisions. So I love the fact that you're like, no, look at your numbers, look at the evidence, look at the data, and then make an informed decision about what you're going to do or not do, right? Which
Right.
that's really good. So what
Right.
does it cost us in our time, our life, our work if we don't have the right balance? If we are
Right.
losing ourselves in the process, like what? And I'm sure maybe you can speak from personal experience. I don't know, asking for a friend.
You know, for me, it's about asking God for what it is that you need in the present moment that you're in. So many people borrow
Mm,
stress and strain from the future.
mm,
And I did it myself when I first started writing. I loved the idea of sort of native first draft writing. And all I could start thinking was, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to edit this. Like, I'm gonna have to go through and like throw away stuff that I like, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to make this actually sound like a novel that you would purchase at a store. Like, it started to overwhelm me. And I remembered what I've taught myself and others for so long was let's not borrow it from the future. And instead, let's pray for a mindset that gives us excitement for that. So all I did was every night I would pray, dear Lord, give me a brain and an excitement for editing.
mm.
And he delivered. By the time I'd finished my first draft, I was really excited to go back and do it. I've done that with every piece of this process. Give me a brain and an excitement for social media promotion. Oh my gosh, like, oh, I'm still working on that one,
I
but
need to pray for that more. Yes.
I know, but it is just this idea of it's your mindset for how you feel about
Mm,
the things that are
mm.
sometimes just required on your calendar. And instead
Yeah.
of going into it with sort of a dread of, oh, well, I just have to get through this to get through to
Yeah.
the fun stuff or to get through to the things that I want to do, ask God to change your mindset about the
Mm,
things that you have to do. And I would say that the number one word that I use with folks all the time, not because I discovered it, but because I have a podcast where I interview leaders um, about the success that they've found in very high-powered jobs, is the word curiosity.
I love that word
Every
actually.
time I ask someone, if you were to hire your replacement now,
Mm,
beyond the skills that are required for your job, what is the one trait that you would look for? Overwhelming, like overwhelming. People who have not heard, don't understand what I'm asking, or any of those other pieces, they will say the word curiosity. If you remain curious about the things in your life, the way that you apply your time, the way that you see yourself, and the joy that you see in the work that you do changes exponentially. So, the other, advice, if I can be so humble as to offer it, is the places that you're dragging, the places that you feel like are zapping your energy, find a way to be curious about it. Find a
mm,
way to like see it from a new angle or get somebody else that like does that really well and walk alongside them because curiosity changes everything about how we see life.
Yeah, because I think curiosity gets you noticing what's actually going on instead of ignoring it or denying it or,
Yes.
being, it's like
Or being
something, but
afraid of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And until
Yeah.
you get curious about it, because how often, and I just had this conversation with a client the other day, she was shaming herself about something. I was like, what if we just got curious about that? Why did I
Yeah.
do this? Or why didn't I do
Yes.
this? Or why did I say I was going to do this and then not do this? Or, like,
Right.
and she was like, oh, wow. Because I said that
Yeah.
the thing of it is if you don't get curious about, oh, I noticed that, like, I wonder why, then it's going to
Yeah.
happen again. And you're just going to keep shaming yourself, right? And judging yourself. And then you're going to, yeah, keep
Yeah.
repeating. I want to circle back to one
I
quick thing.
played,
But
oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I played around with that in my book with a character that he was really struggling with relevancy, like how I'm losing my relevancy in a career that's moving. And instead of being curious about it, he let fear drive him in some of the things that he did. And so it's fun to play with that as well. And that's why I think storytelling and books are so great for our brains, is because we start to see ourselves even in the characters we don't necessarily
we're like
like or
getting tricked
don't
into
want them to
learning and we
win.
don't.
Yeah, we're like, oh, geez, I do that. I let fear drive me instead of being curious and finding a way, into the problem. I'm just gonna find a way to squash somebody. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. We're tricking ourselves to learning something without really, yeah. The only thing I was going to go back to is just like you were talked about, like asking for the provision for today. It just reminds me of like, give us this day our daily bread. There is a reason why God only gives us 24 hours at a time and not 72 and not, 102 or whatever we would love, right? There's also a reason why he gives us the plan for today and not necessarily for tomorrow and things like that, because it gives us that dependence on him. And just
Yes.
like, this is all that I can control right now is the time in front of me. I can't do anything about the time that's already passed or the time that's yet to come. Like, what am I doing now? So, all right. So, my listeners, we want to be good stewards who are faithful and fruitful with our time. I know we kind of mentioned some things at the beginning. So, I'd love like a few little practical, tactical things we can take away so that we can have it all in a healthy way. Okay. We're not like the world's way of you can have it all, bring home the bacon, fried up in a pan. Like, yeah, in the God honoring, like we actually are a person people want to be around in both life and work. So whether that's around setting boundaries or getting support or letting go of guilt, like what might be a couple of those practical things you'd share with us?
Well, one of the ones that I've become very attuned to is setting timers on my phone. So I know that sometimes I have to delve into, I see that I need to be curious about something because it's bothering me. And, instead of living in the tension of it, I need to do some research or I need to do something, that I don't want to spend time doing. I set a timer and say, I'm going to give myself 16 minutes to do this uninterrupted. I'm going to read this and I'm not going to stop until, my timer goes off. But I do it the opposite way too. Like I'm going to give myself some rest, or I'm going to give myself some entertainment, or I'm going to do some scrolling without getting to the doom part, but I'm
Right.
setting timers all the time because I recognize that I can't always judge how
Right.
much I've really been expending of my own self into
Yeah.
something.
Time can feel
So,
very relative and it can feel like, oh my goodness, it's been forever and it's not, or it can feel like,
yes,
it went so fast and we get sucked in.
yes,
Yeah, the
yes.
only thing I don't love about that, I do that too. I'm so glad that I'm not the only one. I'll be literally in the middle of leaving a voice message for somebody or a Voxer, right? And my alarm goes off or as a reminder for something. And I'm like, because it cuts you off if you're trying to
Trying
record
to,
something. So
yes, that
anyway,
is
I'll be like, that
true.
was my reminder, So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Get right back on Voxer, press the button, and be
I
like, I'm
know,
here
right?
again. Yes, I actually think I had that happen today because I have some author friends that we share notes back and forth on Voxer, and I'm always getting interrupted.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is sometimes a good thing too, because I'm like, ooh, am I
I could talk
rambling?
forever on there. Oops,
Yes,
sorry, 8 minutes. Didn't mean to.
exactly. Put me on 4 point speed. Yes, please.
Exactly. Yes, yes.
Um, I think another piece for me as I'm looking at things is folks are sometimes worried. They say, and you said it, we do have time. We
Mm,
do have time. How are we spending our time?
mhm,
And sometimes we take a look at something and we say, well, I can't say yes to that because way down the road, it's going to
mm,
cost me this.
mm.
When we moved to Maine, we had a neighbor that was difficult, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but my husband was like, well, let's let's just love her. She's our neighbor. I'm like, she's suing everybody. I don't really, I have, it's just hard.
Sure.
And in the end, it kind of came down to me as sort of the wife and the mom to, befriend her.
Yeah.
And I just went on this idea of I'm going to do the next right thing. So I am going to write her a sweet note, or the kids and I are going to make cookies and we're going to deliver some to her. And sometimes that was met with like, a thankfulness. And most of the time it was met with, we have somehow gotten it wrong. Like she's
Okay.
off gluten for today, or,
Oh.
whatever the case may be. But over time, her and I developed such a sweet relationship.
Mm.
And it cost me something. It cost my time, and it cost some friends, and it cost other things by deciding that I would sit with her and I would share Jesus with her, and I would be a light in her world that was extremely small and agitated. So, but God didn't ask me to take a look at the end and say, is it worth it? Like how much time am I going to spend? What he asked me was in that day that she had a need to do just one small good thing that he was putting on my heart. So I feel like sometimes we are meant, and it kind of comes back to Ephesians 5:17. Sometimes we're really meant to understand a much bigger sense of what God's will is. And sometimes we're only meant to understand that we're being nudged to do this small thing. And it changes everything about who we are and what we're allowed to witness and how we're allowed to be part of someone else's story. I don't regret a moment of the relationship that I've had with this woman who passed away recently. She has changed my life in such a tremendous way. People tell me all the time, "Oh, you changed her life." I'm like, "You don't even understand,
Wow.
like I am so blessed by it, but I'm so glad that God didn't set me out with a full understanding." So I guess I would just encourage listeners to, when you're seeking God's understanding in your life, that sometimes seek to just feel the nudge
Mm.
and do the good, right thing that he's asking you to do.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, right there is an example of what we talk about on here, RODI, return on time invested. Like you had to invest that time by faith. You didn't know for sure what the outcome was going to be. You got even negative, or less than what you would have, gracious responses. And yet you just kind of was like, okay, I'm just going to do the next little thing and just keep planting seeds and keep watering seeds and just trust, the outcome to the Lord. And that's really what I think that we are called to. We can't always control the outcome, but guess what? That outcome will never come in any shape or form if we don't actually start planting some seeds and just
Right.
trust him in the process and stuff like that. So yeah, I
Right.
love that. So as we're kind of wrapping things up, like there's so much we could talk about. I'm just thinking in my head. I think when women hear work-life balance, they either go, not a thing, not even real, like don't tell me I actually can't, or they're like, oh my goodness, I so wish I could actually find that sweet spot of like, and I'm trying to get there. And one of the ways I teach work-life balance is I go, balance is not a noun, it's a verb. Watch a ballerina, she's upright up here, but her feet are constantly moving because she's making adjustments so that she doesn't go too far one direction or the other. It's not this I got to a standing
Beautiful.
still spot. It's I'm actually actively a part of this process and paying attention to what needs my attention, right? So, how would you define work-life balance since you're talking about this, not only, in your podcast, but also, in your book and things like that? And what would be maybe one piece of encouragement you would give to a woman listening today who is struggling with that kind of balance and feels like she's
Right.
maybe kind of losing it or herself or everything in the process?
Right. I think it's funny. There's so much written about work-life balance, and sometimes when people say it, or I even say it, someone will correct and say,
Right.
"Oh, balance doesn't exist." Blah blah.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? Forget the semantics. Just, are you finding in your life that you are thriving more than you're falling, and are you
Mm,
finding a contentedness that translates to joy with the people around you?
mm,
And again, I kind of come back to that quarterly review. I don't think you should be judging yourself every day. Like, am I in balance?
mm,
If you are setting out a plan and you are prayerfully considering what it is that you've set into place, give yourself some slack and say, I am thriving. I have found the balance that is available to me in this season of life. I'll say one more thing, and I'm not sure if this is going to be encouraging or not.
That's okay. We'll let the
But
Lord do that part.
yes, let's just, like open ears if you want to hear. But I have a lot of younger women that I now speak to. And the balance for them is trying to shove as many of the things in their life as they can. And my maybe discouraging piece was that there was a time in my life where God, my family, with my relationship with my husband, and my work was all I could really manage.
Mm,
I did not really have a hobby, and my friends I saw rarely.
mm,
And I was okay with that, right? Because my work was demanding such that every extra moment that I had, I really wanted to spend it with the people that God had placed in my life for that season to really pour into them. And
mm,
I didn't get the chance to do a Galentine's, or I didn't get a chance to, head off for a weekend to the Poconos, or I didn't get a chance to fill in the blank. And it wasn't for forever. It wasn't like God
mm.
was like removing all these like great friendship things, or I, never learn how to crochet, or I would never learn, never be able to watch, whatever latest show that was on at the time. But for that season, I did. I restricted myself down to the things that God was calling me to do. And it gave me a much better sense of
Mm.
time and pace and patience with my children and love for my husband and all of that. So that can be kind of discouraging to think, well, but I wanted all. And I'm like, well, you don't always get it all at the same time, right?
Right.
I do have time now a little bit sometimes to, take that fun trip with my girlfriends, or to do things with my sisters, or to, pull up a new photography, skill, but I didn't then.
Mm.
And that was okay. And I needed to give myself grace for shrinking my world to what I could handle at that time.
It's paying attention to your season, right? That's always going to be so
Yes.
key. And it just may not be
Yes.
the season for that. And that's okay. And that's why I love if you're
Yes.
reevaluating every quarter or every, whatever
Yes.
that is, then you can ask the question, now is it time for
Right.
this? Where could
Right.
this fit? If I really feel like this is something that would be life giving and things like that. So I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Well, I love your
Good.
story. I can't wait to read your story. I know there's so much we have to learn, and we're going to learn through your characters and things like that. So as we're wrapping things up, tell us again the name of your book, where we can find it, and then tell us the name of your podcast in case people want to go and follow that.
Great. It's called The Lies We Trade. Available where you get books. And so I highly recommend bookshop.org, because it will support your local bookstore, which
Oh,
is great if
nice.
you don't have time to run into a bookstore. But feel free to get it wherever you'd like. I am really an open book to folks that are reading it and want some commentary or want some
Mm.
behind the scenes. I can be reached at KristineDelano.com, and I have a newsletter that goes out that gives some additional insights into why I wrote the book and how you might see yourself there.
Mm.
And then, yes, as you mentioned, I have a podcast called We Talk Careers, also available through KristineDelano.com, just to be able to get the link to it, but available on all the places that podcasts are shown. And I'm excited about it because it gives voice to people that you may not have access to. These are folks that have really invested into their careers. They've made mistakes. They're willing to be vulnerable, and they're willing to talk about what it takes sometimes to rise. And so it's been a kind of a labor of love. It started with kind of my 12 best friends, just
Uh-huh.
interviewing them. And then 4 years later, we're just letting people come on and share the hard and share the ways that they've found success.
Love it. I love it. We'll make sure to link those things in the show notes. And my audience knows we take the conversation off the podcast into the Redeemer Time community. where we can be like, oh my goodness, I feel so much like this character, or, this is how I'm struggling with work-life balance and things like that. So we will always have some engaging questions in there around the topic that we have on the podcast. So if you're not a member yet, go to redeemhertime.com/community. Come and join us. There's a free business directory in there. It's a great place to come get encouragement, inspiration. You're not going to doom scroll because it's not like Facebook where there's all, you get sucked in for hours. And it used to be you get to the end of your feed, and now they figured out, like, Facebook, Instagram, how to keep your feed like perpetually going to keep you in there. So you come in my community and you don't get that. You get to the end and then you're done, and then you go live your life and do what you are called to do. So
love that.
Yeah, so we'll link to all that in the show notes. So thanks so much, Kristine, for sharing your wisdom with us today. I know so many women are going to be blessed. I can't wait to dive into your story. I always love ending with this question. One of the signature things that I talk about is, yes, you have time, but then the question, what is it time for? So when you think about that question, right, if you were having a quarterly review right now today, Kristine, and looking ahead to the next 12 weeks quarter that you're stepping into, how would you answer that question? What is it time for?
So I'm just going to read the first sentence of my book.
Ooh.
Because it's hidden in this sentence for me. I always watch for the pivot. I sense it before I see it, and I notice it before the crowd. And it sets off a book of a woman who stops sensing the pivot. She stops being present in the everyday because she's so focused on the success ahead. So I would say that as people are listening right now is to take the moment to be absolutely present in what God has for you, what's going on in the world around you, the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts of folks that rely on you and that you love. So being present and being watchful is where I would love to leave it.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for that. And we'll be praying for you as you get this book out and as you are present to what God has in this season for you and coming up. And that's going to be our hope here as well around Redeem Her Time. And I'm going to just say, if you know someone who's working hard and would benefit from a little fiction that actually is some learning in there too, or somebody who's looking for some balance in their lives, or, just, again, that you think this conversation would resonate with them, please share this episode with a business bestie or a two or a few, because I think it's really fun to share the things that we love. So, all right, Kristine, thanks so much for being with us today. We'll see you guys next time.